This is All Ears with JP Finlay.
What up, everybody? Welcome into All Ears. My name is JP Finlay. We successfully made it back from Indianapolis, Indiana, and this is our last show before free agency opens. That's right. Next week, things are going to get nuts. Washington's got a whole bunch of money to spend. In a little bit, we'll get into how I think they should spend that money. I think we do know that Washington's going to be more aggressive in free agency coming off a 5-12 season. The Commanders have to get better pretty much on all three phases. All over this roster, there are holes, and you don't only want to build through free agency, but you got to add in free agency, certainly more aggressive than they were last year. Let's get right into it. Let's kick things off here. General Manager Adam Peters, this is what I'm hearing. I asked him, how are things going to change?
Coming off a down season, how much, if at all, do you think you guys need to change your approach in free agency?
Well, you always want to get better, so I don't know. Changing your approach, I think your goal is to always, field the best team possible. So that's always going to be the goal. And so there's certain things you learn that you did well, certain things you learn that you didn't do well, and you just try not to do those things. And I mean, I don't know how many years I'm into it, but there's always things that I'm learning new that I'm screwing up and things that I can get better at, and that's all of us. But so changing the approach in terms of what our goal is, no, but changing, certain approaching things differently or learning the lessons from the previous years, yeah, always doing that.
Are there any lessons in particular that you've learned that you apply to this year?
Specifically, not off the top of my head. I think, you guys have asked me about, Terry's negotiation. We covered that a little bit and trying to, I think we ended up in a good place and super, super happy we got there, but would have liked to get that done sooner. And that's a good lesson. But in terms of free agency and all that, I think the same principles apply, just making sure you stick to those principles and making the best decisions for the team.
AP sounding a little like me talking to my wife. I'm just learning lessons and trying to get better, honey. But there is a lesson in there that Peters brought up from the Terry McLaurin contract situation. A similar situation is about to unfold with Laramie Tunsil. Maybe that thing gets taken care of much earlier in the process and doesn't drag all the way into summer and then eventually into training camp. I think that one will. I think the Tunsil situation will get resolved on a much faster cycle than the Terry situation did. And Washington's already making moves. The Commanders know they've got to get better and bigger on their defensive front. Part of that is by bringing in free agent Shai Tuttle, as well as bringing back free agent to be Dietrich Wise. Remember, Wise was a big part of their efforts to stop the run last year when they signed him. Unfortunately, he got hurt super early in the season. I got to catch up with Dietrich about his recovery, how he's feeling after that big injury, and what coming back to Washington means for him.
I've been doing great. They've been taking care of me, so I've been improving. I've been getting better.
How much do you look forward to maybe doing it again, like getting back out there for these Washington fans? Because you're a dude that embraces the community.
I'm ready to go. Yeah, once everything moves forward, and I'll be back on that field.
Dietrich will be back on that field. Now, if you're wondering what was going on behind Dietrich in that video, yes, those were fencers. Yes, Dietrich Wise is a fencer. We'll have a story on that that's going to be super interesting coming up in the coming days. Now, Dietrich Wise isn't the only free agent that Washington has brought back. You see they've addressed the defensive line early. What about the offensive line? Well, the Commanders have been smart in the guys that protect Jaden Daniels, bringing back both Nick Allegretti, you see right there. Allegretti's an interesting one. They released Tyler Biadasz. Could that mean Allegretti's bumping inside to play center? That remains to be seen. What about Andrew Wiley? Versatile veteran offensive lineman, can play multiple spots, has helped them throughout his time in Burgundy and Gold. And for Andrew Wiley, he's super excited to be back in Washington.
This is a special group. Not only players, but everyone in this building, in this place. We can win a lot of football games here. And, I know it. That's why I signed back last year. And that's why I signed back this year. I know we can win a lot of games here. The culture is in place. DQ and AP have this place going. It's on lock. We just got to, step up, take it to that extra step, make a little playoff run and get to the big one. And so just like I know we can.
Andrew Wiley certainly seems confident. It's too bad there weren't fencers in the back of his video like there were for Dietrich Wise. I could practice on guard. Speaking of finalizing things in advance of free agency, Washington finally finalized their coaching staff. Obviously, a lot of changes. Many of these you know about. David Blau gets that internal promotion to the offensive coordinator spot. They do keep Anthony Lynn. There was some talk if A. Lynn could get a head coaching job elsewhere. New face there, Ben Steele is your new tight ends coach. He has long-standing ties to Dan Quinn. Some more promotions in there. DJ Williams, new quarterbacks coach, comes from Atlanta. But the name that stands out to me, David Rye and Darnell Stapleton. Stapleton is another internal promotion to the offensive line coach. Rye gets the promotion. You see him there with John Bates. Rye was the tight ends coach, now the pass game coordinator. This is a college quarterback. David Rye has kept a relatively low profile among fans, but within coaching circles, he's considered an up-and-comer, a guy with a really sharp acumen on the offensive side of the ball. Good to see Dan Quinn and David Blau promote him and give him more of a role forming this pass game that's coming for Jaden Daniels. It's going to look different, folks. This won't be Cliff's system. This is going to look different. Expect to play action. Expect to see the quarterback under center. We also have the finalized defensive coaching staff roster. Obviously, Durant Jones taking over at D coordinator, coming from the Vikings. Eric Henderson is a name that many in Ashburn are quite excited about. He's going to be the defensive run game coordinator. And then what does that mean for Darryl Tapp? Darryl Tapp's a Tidewater native, a guy that a lot of folks were excited to see in burgundy and gold after his days playing for the Hokies. Darryl Tapp taking a little bit of a step backwards here to the assistant defensive line coach. Shows that he must really want to be in Washington and believes in the players he's with. And then you've got the veteran Ken Norton as your linebackers coach as well. Good to see a guy like Ken Norton, so respected all over the NFL, stick with this staff. Now, I do want to keep this moving. I want to get into what they're saying because as we get closer to free agency, we also get that much closer to the draft, and these two things go hand in hand. So what does Daniel Jeremiah think about the best pass rusher coming up in April? How are you feeling? Obviously, the mocks are going to continue to shift, but these pass rushers, there's so much interest in kind of those top three guys.
Yeah, and I think, just talking to buddies with teams around the league this week, all different orders, all different flavors. I haven't found anybody who doesn't like any of them, right? Those top three guys, everybody agrees they're really, really good players. Some teams are just looking for a fastball, and they're Bailey teams. Other teams are looking for a bully, and they're Bain teams. And then other teams want to take a shot on Arvell Reese as someone a little bit more unknown as an edge guy, just in terms of how he's moved around in that defense and doesn't have quite the track record the other two have. But everybody seems to agree, as I do, that the most ceiling there is with Reese.
Reese seems like the best prospect, but Bain and Bailey seem like dudes that can hit the ground running. Am I reading that right? And which way do you lean if it's like athletic tools and potential versus this guy might be able to give you 11 sacks next year?
It just depends on what you actually value, honestly. If you want somebody that can come in and be a sack artist right away, then you're looking for David Bailey. I think he can be a 12-sack-a-year guy right away, right out the gate. But if you're looking for that identity pick, is what I like to call it, I think Ruben Bain is your guy, just because he's going to bring a different type of bruising mentality as far as against the run, the power that he plays with. I don't think he's going to be a consistent 12-plus sack-a-year guy, but he can give you, I think, 8 to 10. I think he can give you that consistently. But once again, if you're looking to establish an identity, Ruben Bain is going to do that for you right away because he's going to come in. He's probably going to be one of your strongest defensive linemen. He's going to be one of your most consistent against the run. And I loved hearing Mario Cristobal talk about him because he said our two pillar pieces that changed the program, and they've been with me since I've been in Miami, was Ruben Bain and Francis Maui-Noah. I mean, he said him and Maui-Noah are our two biggest leaders on the roster just because they've been through everything. They've been through, those losing seasons. They've been through the transition years as well.
Very cool to see those clips of Daniel Jeremiah and Jordan Reed joining me on my radio show, 106.7 The Fan. Now, when you talk about these pass rushers, is a ton to like. Arvell Reese is this freak athlete. You wonder what his ceiling is. David Bailey's going to come in right away, rush the passer. You can pencil him in for maybe double-digit sacks. But Ruben Bain is the name I keep circling back to. Durant Jones talked about his want and his need for versatility among his defensive linemen. Guys he can move around a bit, guys that can do more than one thing for you. That, to me, sounds a lot like Ruben Bain, the star out of Miami. The bigger question is, will one of those three guys, will any of them still be around with the 7th overall pick that Washington has? I'm not so sure that's a certainty, which may open the door for other players, Jeremiah Love, Carnell Tate. We'll have to talk about them as we get closer to the draft. But one guy that knows plenty about the draft and plenty about the burgundy and gold, that would be Commanders superfan Kevin Durant. Everybody knows Kevin Durant's one of the best basketball players on the planet in history. He's from here, and he loves the burgundy and gold. What you missed? What would Kevin Durant do if he was GM in Washington?
I don't want to put my GM hat on. I trust Adam. Like I said, just like the Wizards, I think they're putting together talent. They got great coaching staff, great leadership. And the game is about putting the best players on the field and on the floor. So I think that's what both organizations are doing pretty well. And once you have that, just that continuity, you'll start to grow as a group. So I'm excited about DC sports. Wizards and Commanders are doing some great things that you'll start to see come to fruition down the line, I think. So it's a great time to be a fan.
It's a great time to be a fan, said by one of the biggest fans, Kevin Durant. Listen, I think he's right saying I trust Adam Peters. Can't wait to see what they do this offseason. But there's a part of me that also loves to hear Kevin Durant talk about how he likes what the Wizards are doing, how they're putting young talent together. As a DC sports fan, it's been so long since you could really feel a ton of momentum with the Wiz, but I think we're starting to feel it. All right, when we come back, everybody loves spending money. What if you get to spend money that isn't yours? And it's on football players. I'll explain exactly what I mean when everybody's favorite game show, Spend Josh Harris's Money, comes back.
This is All Ears with JP Finlay.
We are back. It is all ears. We're on the eve of free agency. When we're back this time next week, we're going to know some of the guys Washington has signed. We're going to know some of the money that Adam Peters has spent. But whose money is it? Spend Josh Harris's money. Everybody remember Win Ben Stein's Money? Well, younger viewers might not remember that, but it was a very popular game show on like Comedy Central, I think, when I was in college. And the premise was this old rich dude knew a lot of stuff, and if you answered the questions right, you got to win his money. Well, our premise, Josh Harris, very wealthy fella, but more importantly for the Washington Commanders, they have a ton of cap space going into free agency. Now, these are all rough estimates, right? But they might end up with as much as $90 million by the time the new league year opens. I don't believe Washington's going to spend that much. We're going to use roughly the $70 million number as what we think. And we have a series of contestants. Now, this guy's named David. Could that be after offensive coordinator David Blau? Who knows? But if you're David, you probably want to spend a lot on offense. There's going to be a lot of talk about the wide receiver position, adding somebody to complement Terry McLaurin, taking advantage of Jaden Daniels being on this rookie contract, and just getting more speed on the field. That's going to cost you. Alec Pierce, the Colts wide receiver, is a player a lot of people are going to talk about. Alec Pierce is going to cost significant money. What if you want one of these stud young tight ends? Chiga Okonkwo, Tennessee Titans, formerly Maryland Terrapin. That's going to cost you real money. What if you want a running back? The guy I like, Rico Dowdle. But there's going to be others. What if you want Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker? That's going to cost you real money. Then you still got to spend just elsewhere. They might have to sign a center. Keep that in mind. You're not only going to sign one wide receiver. You're probably not only going to sign one running back. You will have to add to that O-line. Oh, by the way, Marcus Mariota's a free agent. Either whether you bring Marcus back or you have to find a new backup quarterback, that's going to cost you money too. So let's just hypothetically say this is an offensive look at spending a whole bunch of money. Well, football's played with multiple units, and one of them is the defensive side of the ball. So let's just hypothetically say our next contestant is Durant. I don't know who that could be. Maybe a defensive coordinator. Where would he want to spend the money for Washington? Again, we're ballparking $70 million gets spent in free agency. If you want to add to the D-line, and listen to me, in Ashburn, you've got to add to the D-line. If you want to add to the D-line, it's going to cost a lot. You know what you pay for in free agency? Sacks. Washington needs to get sacks. There's a number. What if you go top of market for Trey Hendrickson? That's going to cost you a lot of money. I like Boye Mafe. Just won a Super Bowl ring with Seattle Seahawks. This is a really good pass rushing free agency class. Jalen Phillips from the Eagles. There's a lot of really good options to rush the passer, but they will not come cheap. I also think Washington's going to have to add corners in free agency. Now that $18 million figure, you might be able to sign two guys for that money, or you could go top of market for one guy. And then linebackers. Linebacker, you got a decision to make with Bobby Wagner, who reports say wants to come back and play again. Does that mean he plays in Washington or plays elsewhere? If you don't re-sign Bobby, you're going to have to add somebody. There's a lot of young linebackers that I like that are coming off of rookie deals. Leo Chenal with the Chiefs, Nakobe Dean coming from the Eagles. Those are guys that I thought Ron Rivera should have drafted years back. He didn't, but nobody listens to me. So this would be a defensive look at where you can really spend some money. But let's just say there's a contestant named Adam, and his job is to run the whole team and to look at the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball to see how you would spend a lot of money in free agency. Remember, we're ballparking numbers here. But if you're going to add on the D-line, and I would put that at the top of the list, if you're going to add on the D-line, it's going to cost you real money. But then you want to add a wide receiver, somebody that helps Terry McLaurin. What about a guy like Juwan Jennings, who has played his football in San Francisco? He was drafted to the Niners when Adam Peters was the assistant GM for the Niners. You could argue Juwan Jennings is one of, if not the best blocking wide receivers in football, does all the little things right, would help this offense. Tight end, maybe you can't spend as much there because you're spending elsewhere. Running back, you're probably going to add a veteran thumper at the running back position. You got to add some corners just to round out your roster. This is a rough look. I think we're probably a little bit north of $70 million, but if you think about what Adam Peters has to bring in this free agency cycle, it's a lot. I think they should mix it up on both sides of the ball. That also frees them up to take the best player available with that 7th overall pick. No matter what they're going to do, I promise you one thing. They're going to spend Josh Harris's money. Mailbag when we return. You're watching All Ears. All right, folks, we are back, and it's my favorite segment of the week, the mailbag, where you guys get to drive the show. Last week, it was pretty cool. In Indy, we were taking live questions from the audience that was there, at least in my head. But tonight, we're back to Twitter, or X, whatever it's called. GP, Park Place 68 asks, how is this year's free agent approach going to be different than last year's? Well, sir, I asked Adam Peters that question to open the show, if you were paying attention. AP didn't really answer it, though. So how is it going to be different? I think they recognize they've got to be more aggressive. Go back to 2024, the first year of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn running this operation. They signed 3 guys that year to real contracts, 3-year deals with guaranteed money in the second year. Tyler Biadasz, Frankie Louvu, Dorrance Armstrong. Now, obviously, Biadasz is gone, but Louvu and Armstrong, assuming he recovers from that injury, look like real key core pieces for this team and have been throughout their time in Washington. I think Adam Peters has to get back on that mindset where we're signing guys that we want to have for the long haul, maybe a 3 or 4 year window, not just 1 year rentals that you got to go back to the window every single off season. We'll see if it plays out that way, but I do expect Adam Peters to be more aggressive, both in how much money he's willing to spend and the types of contracts he gives out with multi-year guaranteed cash. Brandon, I believe Brandon's on the All Ears mailbag Mount Rushmore. Congratulations, Brandon. You deserve it. Do you believe Washington should spend heavily on defense, edge and corner, or spend heavily getting Jaden weapons? Yes? Can I just say yes? It's a fair question because I understand the thought process that some have that's like, listen, you're probably not going to get this defense better overnight. Why not just go all in on offense, try to score 40 a game, be a little bit better on defense? Maybe Durant Jones' scheme is just that much better and things just go that much smoother and they'll go from a bottom 5 defense in the NFL to maybe a bottom half. And then they could win some games that way. I don't hate it conceptually. I do think you have to try to get your entire roster better. So I don't think it'll be all one way or the other. I do think, though, they are going to pay more attention to getting Jaden weapons than maybe others are realizing. I do think they recognize offensively we need more playmakers. We have Terry McLaurin, but last year he missed time. And, man, was that offense tough to watch at times without Terry on the field. Who do we have now? Jonas Bloom. Are we actually far from being competitive again, or is it so much about luck that last season could be a fluke? Listen, if you go 12-5 and then 5-12, is the truth probably somewhere in the middle? Is this an 8-9 win team? Maybe. Last year, injuries really crushed this team, so I'm not sure we got the most honest look at what they were supposed to be. Now, there was also the Terry McLaurin contract situation. How much of that was self-inflicted? How much of that has Adam Peters learned from? The key, though, is keeping Jaden Daniels healthy. I think if Jaden Daniels stays healthy, then I think they're a highly competitive team because I think he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. If Jaden misses significant time again, it's a very different calculus. I think that's why you want to try to at least get that defensive side of the football at least a little bit better, maybe even a lot better. Bob down in Florida. As somebody who's been in the DMV for terrible weather for months, Bob down in Florida, I'm jealous of you. All right, Bob, if you could add any former Washington player to the current roster, who would it be and why? I mean, that's an outrageous question. I mean, can I just say like the Hall of Famers? I'll try to drill down a little more specifically to a player from my youth that I always thought was so good, was always so professional, Charles Mann. We talk about a team that needs a pass rusher. I'm not saying that Sean Taylor or Ken Houston or a number of players might not be better, but man, could this team use a Charles Mann? Somebody that's an elite pass rusher, an elite person, elite in the locker room. Charles Mann gets my answer. I hope you enjoyed that, Bob, down in Florida. When we come back, weekend line time. We're back. It is all ears, and it's time for the weekend line. We're taking a look ahead to the NFL draft. This is really interesting. DraftKings has the Commanders at plus 275 to take stud Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love at 7 could make a lot of sense, especially for the folks that want to talk about, oh, should you just add weapons for Jaden and try to score 40 a game? What's more interesting, that Commanders number is not all that high. In fact, they have the second shortest odds of landing Love, only behind the Tennessee Titans. The Titans draft higher than them. The Titans are at plus 200. Right behind Washington, the Kansas City Chiefs at plus 350. Vegas seems to think Jeremiah Love is a real possibility in Washington. Thank you all for watching.